Okay, we've got it underway here. I set it for 9:30, but I started a little bit sooner than that. So let me just see if this is coming up. I want to make sure everything is okay. I assume you guys can hear me. I can see the screen. I can see your chat. So let's start off by saying hi to PRJ Grudge, Wayne S., Isaiah Jacob, and Glenn Thompson. You're all here tonight, and that's just wonderful. And Zachary Grybos, awesome. Welcome to my YouTube channel, and Awesome Bobcat is on here. 358 Bobcat, New York is on here. Awesome Gamer is on here. Rad Chick is on here. Rad, I don't go to Twitter very often because I spend so much time on Facebook. I check Twitter a couple times a day, so I'll check it a little later. James NASCAR Fan, who I saw on Facebook, on my Facebook Live a little while ago. Sonny Fournier, Danville Boost, David Fuller, Co-op's Kiss, and Mark Lowry. Awesome. By the way, I believe that today is the 28th consecutive day that we've had at least one hurricane on the map, and that's the longest streak since 1995, so I was told. But I am sure that Anthony Orr, who is our resident statistician and the man who is in charge of keeping us honest, is going to check on that statistic. And my fishing buddy, and my good friend Phil Buzz is on here. He is known on Facebook as he was the North Shore correspondent until he went South Shore, and then he became the All Shore correspondent. So it's good to see my buddy Phil here. Father Simeon Parsons is here. Hi, Father. Hope everything's good going well with you. Cameron Pine, Thomas Pinola, Billy Johnson, Gary L. Raymond is here, worried about I-90, and Lidl Griffin. So let's get started. We'll talk about Maria because the eye of Maria is becoming better defined tonight. What's happening is the circulation is finally moving away from the Dominican Republic. I mean, the bottom part of the storm circulation is touching the Dominican Republic, but for the most part now, it's almost to 21 north. I kind of felt that it needed to get at least to there for it to start to organize, and we're seeing that happen tonight. The eye, it seems to have completed one of those eye wall replacement cycles. It's been moving northwestward. It's getting very close to the Turks and Caicos Islands. It's only about 85 miles away. So the core of the hurricane is even closer, and they are experiencing tropical storm conditions there. The question is whether this eye is going to pass by over or just to the north. Now, looking at the loop, if I were to draw a straight line, I'm thinking it will just barely miss the islands by a handful of miles. It should start to veer a little bit more toward the north pretty soon. I thought maybe it would have started that already, but I guess it's not going to. It's going to do it maybe a little later. We're, crossing 70 west, so we're just about to 20 north and 70 west. And top winds are 125 miles an hour. There's a second recon pass that's going on right now. So I don't believe I have the reconnaissance aircraft on here, but you know what? We're gonna put it on here. So just hang on one second. It's gonna just take me a moment to fix this, and let me just get the new recon. You guys are already used to the fact that I do these things on the fly, so this is nothing new. But the reconnaissance aircraft, by the way, they should be given a tremendous amount of credit. The Hurricane Center acknowledged them in one of their discussions, and I want to repeat that. They were flying missions. They were flying missions almost nonstop into Maria as it was approaching Puerto Rico, and that provides valuable data to the forecasters, which they certainly use to their advantage, and those guys should be commended. So we just made a second pass. I'm looking at the wind scale. I'm trying to see the pressure that they found on the first pass. It was 960 earlier today, so it dropped to 954 millibars. So we've had a 6-hour drop from the a 6 millibar drop from the last mission, and judging from the wind barbs, the winds are every bit at flight level that they reported at 113 to 137 knot winds. There's a band of them that they just flew on that second pass. Now that they came out of the second pass through the center, looks like they found a band of 113 to 137 knots in there. So certainly, I think justifies the 125 miles an hour they went with. Now, I want to see what kind of pressure they print out to see if it dropped a couple of more millibars from the last pass about an hour or so ago. But definitely taking advantage of the warm water that's just east of the Bahamas, with water temperatures in the upper 80s to near 90. Now, it won't be long before Maria winds up actually going over water that's a lot colder. I think I showed that to you guys last night, but if you missed it, I'll show it to you again. I'm just going to bring up, let's move this to the top, and I'm going to put on one of the hurricane models, the HWRF. And the reason why I want to use this is because I want the HWRFP, and that's Maria. Okay, and what we can look at actually is the model's view of sea surface temperatures. And let's go to what it has for today at the initial time frame. And you can see Florida, here are the Bahamas, and you can see the water's very warm, up around 29, 30 degrees Celsius, where Maria is at the moment. But notice, and this is a little unusual, the water here north of 30, between 30 and 35, even though it's mostly in the lower 80s, 27, 28 C, that is actually maybe a little bit below average. And part of the reason for that is the upwelling that we saw from Jose. Now, I'm going to loop the, I'm showing you the water temperatures, and you can see what happens with Maria when it gets over this area of already, less than, let's call it less than warm water, assuming that the track is correct. Their water temperatures are actually going to be upwell down to below 75, which is unusually cool, and it cools off even more as Maria moves on up to the north. So I think that's going to, at a certain point, once it gets up to about 27 or 28 north, if it's moving up close to 70 west, you're probably going to see any strengthening stop because of the cooler than average water temperatures. You can see it there, 25, 25. This is unusually cool, and that arm kind of extends down all the way down to 25 north, and you can see how absolutely supercharged the water is in the Caribbean right now, by the way, running at 31, 32 degrees Celsius. So water temperatures in the entire western half of the Caribbean are running up close to 90 degrees. And I'll mention that because of the fact that, deep in the long range, pressures across most of the Caribbean are going to be low. So I would not be surprised if we wind up eventually seeing something come out of there. But I'm not talking now. I'm talking maybe in about 10 days to 2 weeks. But the general trend of the models has been for things to be possibly pressures to be much lower than average in the Caribbean, and that might be conducive to tropical storm development. Now we can put up the northeastern satellite view. Actually, it's the whole east. And by the way, you folks out in the west, I know I've been neglecting you badly. I really have. And you've had this deep trough out in the west, and you've had snows out in the Rockies. These hurricanes have actually just consumed all of my time over the last couple of weeks. But I promise you, I will get back to, once things settle down, we'll get back to some semblance of normalcy. But here you have Jose, and you could see the top of Maria just coming into view here on this particular satellite view. Jose is still sitting out there. It's drifting. I did notice a westward drift on the satellite. The Hurricane Center also apparently noticed it as well, so which is comforting. But it is drifting very, very slowly to the west, and it's in a weakening phase. We are going to be watching that carefully because of the fact that the weakening of Jose, if it gets out of the way and weakens very fast to a remnant low and goes away, it might change the outcome for Maria. Right now, I'm not going to go down that particular road because of the fact that too many models are saying otherwise. Only a couple are kind of hinting at the idea. Actually, one in particular, which is not the one we rely on, our friend the Canadian model. But as someone pointed out to me earlier, that the Canadian model was the first to bring, to do this whole idea of Jose just kind of sitting here and stalling out. And, that was correct. Canadian was the first to do that. So maybe it's on to something. I don't know, but we're going to have to wait. But in the meantime, the vast majority of models, including the European, have this thing, you see how tightly clustered they are. If the models were all over the place, I would give a little bit of credence to, maybe the possibility that that could happen. But being that all the hurricane track models are kind of clustered together very close, and also being that they've really acted very well with this storm, it's hard for me to go against it. So for the time being, I think I'm just going to, just kind of go along with it, and we'll wait and see what the next few model runs do. I know today's model run, certainly from the standpoint of making Maria a threat, would be a dead set argument against it because of the fact that they were so, not only firm, but they were actually, in a lot of ways, even further east than prior model runs. So we can take a look at the GFS, and let's, hang on. Here we go. Nope, that's not the region I want. We want the east. Okay, so we can use the 10-meter wind. That works for me. So we'll start at the beginning. You can see Maria here, Jose still. We are now into Saturday morning, and Jose is pushes itself a little further east and disappears. Maria responds to that weakness that we've been talking about in the upper flow because of Jose. It initially turns northeastward and pulls out to east of 70, and then back westward, northwestward for a brief time. And then as the next upper trough swings out of the plains and out of central Canada, it gets kicked along to the northeast. And we have a cold front that finally comes through as the ridge in the east breaks down, makes for a nice little couple of waves of low pressure that'll go by next weekend with some cooler air behind it. But that might just be a temporary thing because the models keep wanting to go back to a ridge position in the longer term. So I'll show you the upper air. All right, keep an eye on what's going on. Let me just get Maria out of the picture. So, keep an eye on what's going on across the Midwest and the middle Mississippi Valley. There's an upper high there. You have Jose that's sitting off the East Coast, off the southern New England coast, and you have Maria coming into the picture. Now, you can see where Jose is. You see how there's three ridges of there's three closed area of high pressure systems aloft. One over the eastern Great Lakes down in the middle Mississippi Valley. Another one that is sitting... I believe, I got to go back and look at this before I misanalyze this. That's actually a trough. I'm sorry, so there's two. There's actually a bit of an upper low that forms in the southeast, so there's a little bit of troughing in the southeast. Maria is responding to this weakness, the ridge out in the Atlantic, and there's the trough that's being created extending southward from Jose. So there's a hole right in there that it responds to, and then it moves up. The big upper high builds, so Jose now is gone. And then as a result, you have Maria kind of does this little hook back to the west for a brief time. And then suddenly the jet stream out of Canada begins to lower and it kicks it out to the east-northeast. And you can see this big upper trough that swings eastward. And remember, I've said many times, it's always about timing. And this trough is not timed out with where the hurricane is. So if the timing is wrong, then your track is going to be not what you want. Well, I want to think that everybody would want it to go out to sea. So if the timing is wrong, the system would go out to sea. And in this case, the timing is wrong. The trough is way too late. So unless something radically changes in the models, and you do occasionally see a radical change in the long range, but we're now. This is actually at day 8 or 9, so by this time Maria is long gone anyhow. But you could see where the idea is coming from. Now, the Canadian model today was the one model that had a slightly different outlook. And what the Canadian model did, which was different, is the fact that Jose, the remnant low from Jose, weakens very rapidly on the Canadian model. It gets out of the way almost a full day before all the other models. So the weakness is not there. All we have is the upper high in the east. And Maria responds to that by just staying on this north-northwest course all the way through, and it comes into North Carolina and Virginia. This is the only model that's doing it. But it does at least emphasize the fact of one of the important keys in all of this going forward with Maria is going to be what Jose does. If Jose winds up weakening faster, then perhaps all bets are off. But usually in these instances with these types of systems, they tend to be a little more tenacious and they tend to hang on longer than what the model says. And it's still here and it is weakening. Top winds are about probably now under 50 miles an hour. And you do have a lot of dry air that's coming into this. There's very little convection near the center. You've got some bands of rain around that are just to the east. But the big issue with this is going to be just some clouds. There really isn't too much else that we're going to have to worry about with regards to Jose. So the key going forward with Jose, again, is the fact that we're just going to have to watch to see, is the Canadian right being the only model that it wants to get rid of it a lot faster than what the other models do. That's the way that Maria becomes a problem. Okay, so that 954 pressure actually rose 3 millibars to 957. So that pop down to 954 looks like it was some kind of a bottom, but we'll see when he makes the third pass. But certainly the winds are Category 3 status here with Maria, and you can see where the island is with respect to the eye. It's northwestward. But on the trajectory, I would think that Maria would pass just to the north of that the island, the Turks and Caicos. But we'll have to see. It's a very, very close call for them. And the Hurricane Center track is pretty much the same as it has been. I'm going to try to leave a little bit of time for you guys because I have a weather broadcast to do in a little while. So, but here we have the Hurricane Center's track. You can see how it veers away from the Bahamas and then starts to move northward and then northeastward. Still a hurricane by the time it gets to position east of the Carolinas by about 450, 500 miles. But it's going to be over that colder water. So I don't know how much, how strong it's going to be. I doubt very seriously that it would be a Category 3 hurricane in that position, given what the ocean water temperatures are forecast to be. But we'll see what happens. So you know what? Let me bring Maria up front and center, and I'm going to look at your comments. And by the way, I am going to be taking a bit of a rest over the next week to 10 days, but that doesn't mean I will be stopping the live feeds. Ruthless Goat, thank you so much for hitting Super Chat tonight. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Gets me a cigar and a cup of coffee, and actually will get me, PJ Grudge, thank you so much. Actually, it's going to probably get me some fishing, some tackle that I'm going to need when I go upstate, where I'm heading upstate. But I will be doing some lives from upstate, so don't worry. I'm just hoping that, if Maria goes out to sea, I'm going to be cutting them down to one a day. Hopefully that is the case, because I don't want to be stuck, doing weather all the time. I will be fishing, but I can say that I will be spending the daytime fishing. So if I do the live streams, they'll probably be in the evening, and they won't be at midnight because I will be asleep to get up to fish the next day. So, I got to say hi to Tornado 1994, JS Sweetie, Cameron Pine is here, Arsto, I can't say it, Arstotskan. I hope I got close. the CMC is usually wrong and don't get scared. I agree. The CMC most of the time is not a reliable model. It's the broken clock is right twice a day model, so we have to just be careful. I don't want to put too much, weight on it at the moment, being that it was the only one really of the global models that did it. And I guess the NavGem, Thomas Pinola is correct. It does the same thing as the CMC. And the NavGem is also another one that's not the most reliable, although it did do well with one of these storms. I forgot which one. And you thought I got all dressed up for you. I'm dressed up for you guys. I got my tie. You can see I got my microphone on because I'm going to be doing TV in about 15 minutes. Zachary Grybos, yes, the GFS actually has 2 systems coming out of the Caribbean on the 18Z run, which was a surprise. We'll have to see if those are real, but it has done that for about 4 runs in a row, I believe. So, it goes with the idea of what I'm seeing globally, in that you're going to see lower than normal pressures in the Caribbean going into the month of October. And we're at the time now, by the way, that the development area begins to shift away from the Cape Verdes and away from the tropical Atlantic and more toward the west, where you start to get more of your development west of 50 west and west of 60 west, especially as we go march through the month of October. So from that standpoint, it's playing according to schedule. And Scott Sluggo's rule, don't forget to hit the like button. Thank you so much. Again, thank you to PJ Grudge and to Ruthless Goat and to David Schwartz. Thank you very much for hitting the super chat. I appreciate it. And yes, David Fuller, I was working with Alan Casper for almost 20 years as backup on New Jersey 101.5. I was weekends and I did all his vacation fill-in. So the answer to your question is yes. That ended in 2000, I want to say 2011. The radio business has changed so much now. They just, they very few radio stations have their own on-staff meteorologists now. They have it all contracted out, but that's the way it is. Thank you, William Huber. You like my tie? It is kind of nice. Had it for a long time. I have so many ties that when I worked with Marvin Scott at Channel 11, he used to give me a lot of his old ties. I must have over 200 ties sitting at home. Let's see. I want to make sure I get everybody. Zachary Grybos, do I think 2017 will be the most costliest season? It sure looks that way. I mean, I was looking at the damage in Puerto Rico and in the island of Dominica. My God, Dominica is absolutely leveled. Puerto Rico, the pictures I saw, just devastated. Just devastated. It is amazing. We went so many years without a major hurricane, a Cat 3 hitting the United States, and here we have, these 4 majors, 3 of them that hit land, and all basically linked with each other in terms of how each storm, helped to set up the upper air pattern for the next one. It was a very fascinating time from a meteorological standpoint, but unfortunately just a really horrible time with what these storms have done. Scott Reese, a huge problem with Sandy was declassified and labeled post-tropical 2 hours before landfall. Hosea is by far more post-tropical. But let me tell you something, Scott. That was actually a very good thing that they did, because of the fact that had they not made Sandy post-tropical before landfall, it would have gone inland as a hurricane, and then the insurance companies would have in hurricane deductibles that insurance companies instituted for homeowners in coastal locations, myself included, would have kicked in. Now, I fortunately had no damage from Sandy. I had neighbors that did. I did not. And certainly people on Long Island did. But the hurricane deductibles basically are, I think it's something like 7% or 10% of your house's market value. So in some cases, if you had $1,000 deductible, the hurricane deductible would have been, say if you had a $400,000 house, which on Long Island is not an expensive home. If you had a $400,000 house with a homeowner's insurance with $1,000 deductible normally, the hurricane deductible would have been $40,000. So you would have come out to pay out $40,000 out of pocket before the insurance companies would have paid out $1. By declaring Sandy post-tropical before landfall, that changed the whole equation, and it actually was a huge benefit for people that had to file insurance claims. So there was a plus side to it. Chris Bethune, fishing upstate in New York or New Jersey, hoping to make it up to my camp in New York, North Country for a couple of weeks before closing. I lost your message. I'm sorry. Let me see if I can find it. Okay. Yeah, hang on. I'm sorry. I saw it. And, there you are. To my camp in New York, North Country for a couple of weeks before closing for the season myself. Well, get up there before it gets very warm up there. Scott, you said, was it insurance claim scam? No, it was exactly the opposite. New York and New Jersey residents would have the hurricane deductibles would have kicked in. Okay, it's not that they couldn't claim on their policies; they just wouldn't be able to collect on the damage unless they met the hurricane deductible, which was substantially higher. You know, as I said, in some cases it would be $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. So it was a big plus. Otherwise, just about all of those people, those homes that were damaged, to make up for the hurricane deductible, they would have had to go out and take extra loans. So it was a benefit for them. It wasn't really a scam. When am I coming back to WPIX, Jason? You're there Saturday. Yeah, they asked me to work, but because I'm going on vacation, I'm not going to be able to this time around. But we'll meet up and we'll work together again. We always seem to, so, from time to time. And it'll be good to see you. And come out to one of my library talks, buddy, because I got a couple of them coming up in November. So I'll announce that and I'll give you the info too. I only got time for a couple of more comments because then I have to go. What are the chances of troughing in the Gulf having an influence on Maria pinwheeling into the East Coast? Well, Bobby, I think that's going to depend on... It could if Jose gets out of the way. The weakness of Jose is too obvious a feature in the atmosphere right now that Maria responds to that. So maybe if Jose got out of the way, the upper trough that's in the southeast might be able to exert a little bit more influence. So that's something we'll have to watch, certainly. But look, if the Canadians onto something, we have to see tonight's run start to at least, indicate that there's a possibility that that's the case. I'm not going to, off the day runs today and the in-between run of the GFS, I certainly couldn't come to that conclusion. So we'll have to see if the night runs do the same thing. If the night runs start giving hints that maybe the Canadians onto something, then it's a different story, and we'll go down that road. But can't do that now. Esme, hello to you. Yeah, awesome, Gaber. I need a vacation bad. Why did I leave WPIX Watershed 44? Well, that's kind of not... I didn't leave... television business is a business. And when in 2007, we had a general manager who I guess didn't like my work. She wanted to replace me, and she did. That's just, that's the reality of the business. I don't really make a personal judgment about it. That's just the way things happen. But on the other hand, if it didn't happen that way, I don't know if I would have wound up doing this now. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm far happier doing this than, had I still been, toiling and driving every day into Manhattan, or even on the weekends. I'm kind of happy the way things turned out at the end of the day. Bit of a long road to get to this point, but I'm kind of happy. Yes, JS, sweetie, and I still do show up at Channel 11 from time to time. William Chin, I really don't think there's a small window, as we've talked about tonight. For the most part, we are going to see. We're going to see this probably go out to sea, but let's see what the overnight runs do. And Watershed, no worries. You weren't prying. Listen, none of this stuff is secret. If you go, if you can, it's out there. It was in the news at the time, and it wasn't something that was hidden, and it wasn't anything I did. It's just the nature of the business. I went over at worked at WNBC for a year doing freelance, and then one day they, when everything collapsed in 2008 and they started firing everybody, I was the last one there. I was, high up on the union scale, so they, I was the first one they cut because I made more money. That's just the way it is. That's just reality. And Cameron Pine, I agree with you. This is the future of meteorology, and TV news is definitely on the decline. It's been on a long-term decline for 30 years, and it will continue to do so. I'm not saying anything controversial. I think it's the reality. And, I gravitated to YouTube because I love the fact that I could interact with you guys and do what I want to do. I produce my own show. I decide what to put on. You guys can ask me to put on certain things, and I'll certainly try to do that. And I love having I'm in control of my own productions. And I own it, which is for the first time in my life. The television, TV people, TV meteorologists that do this, get an opportunity to own their own product, which is great, which is just terrific. My website, Rad Chick, is meteorologistjoecioffi.com, and you can find me on Facebook. Cynthia Guignadas, thank you. I'm glad that you're here, and I'm loving it. This is just awesome. And Rad Chick, I do have actually a store on Shopify where you can buy a Joe Stradamus mug or a Joe Stradamus t-shirt. If you go to my Facebook page, meteorologistjoecioffi.com, you can... I'll put it up here. I'm going to type out a couple of links, and then I'm going to have to go, guys. So just .com/ it's very hard here because I don't have a lot of light. You guys may have to cut and paste this if you can. But that's my Facebook page, and I do have, some mugs and some t-shirts. You can take a look at that. Nobody's under any obligation to do anything. And I'll just put... Because I know some of you have asked... Hang on. And if you can't get Super Chat, you can always hit my PayPal if you'd like. Sonny Fournier, sure we had somebody like you here in Cambodia. Weather Channel 100% wrong. We're getting flooded. I'll be out of my house soon, 4 feet of road. There's been all sorts of crazy weather going on all over the place between the hurricanes. Plus, we got these earthquakes going on. It just doesn't seem to stop. And speaking of stopping, folks, I'm going to have to go now. So my next live stream will probably be tomorrow at around the same time. Unless we see something with Maria earlier in the day. But I don't know if I'll have time to do one tomorrow morning. But if not, look for another one tomorrow evening. Everybody, have a great Thursday. We'll see you on Friday. And we'll also see you over the weekend. And I'll try to take some pictures. And I'll be doing a little fishing. So have fun. And we'll see you again tomorrow.